Well, hey guys, and welcome back to Maine Fish and Wildlife for our final reading and reflection of the class. It's January. We made it. And as I said, this is our last reading and reflection from a Sand County Almanac by Aldo Leopold. And of course, this month, we're reading from the month of January. And we're reading a kind of a neat short story that always tends to align with the things going on in the outdoors around us here in Maine. And this month, he's writing about that famous January thaw. So follow along with me. Hopefully you've got your assignment sheet already open in Notability. You can follow along here as I read. We'll talk about what we're reading and some of the meanings of his words here, and then you'll have a chance to reflect on what you read. So let's jump right in. He writes, each year after the midwinter blizzards, there comes a night of thaw when the tinkle of dripping water is heard in the land. It drips strange stirrings, not only to creatures abed for the night, but to some who have been asleep for the winter. The hibernating skunk, curled up in his deep den, uncurls himself and ventures forth to prowl the wet world, dragging his belly in the snow. His track marks one of the earliest datable events in that cycle of beginnings and ceasings which we call a year. The track is likely to display an indifference to mundane affairs uncommon in other such seasons. It leads straight across country as if its maker had hitched his wagon to a star and dropped the reins. I follow, curious to deduce his state of mind and appetite, and destination, if any. The months of the year from January up to June are a geometric progression in the abundance of distractions. In January, one may follow a skunk track or search for bands on the chickadees or see what young pines the deer have browsed or what muskrat houses the mink have dug, with only an occasion and mild digression into other doings. So what he's getting at is winter is boring. There's not much to do, right? January observation can be almost as simple and peaceful as snow and almost as continuous as cold. There is time not only to see who has done what, but to speculate why. He's talking about following those tracks in the snow and seeing which creatures have been out and about and trying to figure out what they were up to along the way. A meadow mouse, startled by my approach, darts damply across the skunk track. Why is he abroad in daylight? Probably because he feels grieved about the thaw. Today his maze of secret tunnels, laboriously chewed through the matted grass under the snow, are tunnels no more, but only paths exposed to public view and ridicule. Indeed, the thawing sun has mocked the basic premises of the microtein economic system. The mouse is a sober citizen who knows that grass grows in order that mice may store it as underground haystacks, and that snow falls in order that mice may build subways from stack to stack. Supply, demand, and transport all neatly organized. To the mouse, snow means freedom from want and fear. So he's saying snow is a good thing for the mouse, right? It provides security. They build their tunnels through there. They store grass in these haystacks around tufts of grass for the winter, and they build tunnels between them. And they're out and about, and they're somewhat safe from predators under that snow. A rough-legged hawk comes sailing over the meadow ahead. Now he stops, hovers like a kingfisher, and then drops like a feathered bomb into the marsh. He does not rise again, so I am sure he has caught and is now eating some worried mouse engineer who could not wait until night to inspect the damage to his well-ordered world. The roughleg has no opinion why grass grows, but he is well aware that snow melts in order that hawks may again catch mice. He came down out of the Arctic in the hope of thaws. For him, a thaw means freedom from want and fear. So exact opposite, right? To this hawk, the thaw represents a good thing because it exposes those mouse tunnels and again makes the mice available for food. So two completely different meanings to two different creatures, that January thaw. The skunk track enters the woods and crosses a glade where the rabbits have pecked down the snow with their tracks and mottled it with pinkish urinations. Newly exposed oak seedlings have paid for the thaw with their newly barked stems. Tufts of rabbit hair bespeak the year's first battles among amorous bucks. Further on, I find a bloody spot encircled by a wide sweeping arc of owl's wings. To this rabbit, the thaw brought freedom from want, but also a reckless abandonment of fear. The owl has reminded him that thoughts of spring are no substitute for caution. So a few things he's observed here, right? He's found where the rabbits have been eating all the oak seedlings that are now exposed by the thaw. You know, bad news for the oak seedlings to be exposed now that the rabbits can get to them again. He sees tufts of rabbit hair that are signs of fights between male rabbits as the breeding season approaches. And then he finds where an owl has caught a rabbit, and he reminds himself that the rabbits may have been a little distracted by the possibility of the first breeding of the year, and lost track of their caution for owls and other predators. The skunk track leads on, showing no interest in possible food and no concern over the rompings or retributions of his neighbors. I wonder what he has on his mind. What got him out of bed? Can one impute romantic motives to this corpulent fellow, dragging his ample belt line through the slush? He's asking, is this skunk out looking for a mate? Is it out looking for possibly a female skunk? And that's a great word there, corpulent, which means, hefty, round. It's dragging its belly through the snow. Finally, the track enters a pile of driftwood and does not emerge. I hear the tinkle of dripping water among the logs, and I fancy the skunk hears it too. I turn homeward, still wondering. So he follows those tracks right to that pile of driftwood and realizes that the skunk's probably in there listening to that same sound he is, and happy with what he's done, he heads home. Just a really fun story that's so reminiscent for me of roaming around out in the woods this time of year, especially on a warmer day with a little January thaw, looking for tracks and piecing together what kind of creatures have been out and about. So I hope you enjoyed that short story by Aldo Leopold. A couple of years ago, I took this photograph. I was out with my daughter looking for deer sheds. This is from February, of course, but similar, quick thaw had exposed all kinds of these mouse tunnels in the field we were walking through, and it immediately reminded me of this short story. Had to get a photo of that for you guys. So there you go. There's those exposed mouse tunnels that Leopold was mentioning in that story. That's exactly what he's talking about. So be sure to go ahead and answer these questions that we answered as we read along here. Of course, he's talking about skunks walking around. He's following skunk tracks in the snow. And if we think about what type of gait a skunk has, going back to our discussion of the various gaits our mammals exhibit here in Maine, we could take a look here at our track document. If we check in on skunk tracks, we can see that skunks are pacers, right? Their hind and front feet don't quite land on top of each other, and they have this kind of waddling style of walk similar to a raccoon or a bear or even a beaver right there. They're all pacers. So the pacer would be our gait that we're looking at with a skunk, and he thinks that he may be out looking for a mate. What I'm really looking for you guys to do, and I love reading these reflections, you know that. I'm really looking for you guys to contrast what that January thaw means for both the field mouse and the hawk. It means two completely different things. And then find one passage that relates to your own observations in Maine. One way you connect to this story, an experience you share with Aldo maybe. I know several of you have been out walking in the woods with me in the snow at this point, so we all share some of these experiences with Aldo. So share some of that with me. I'd love to hear it, just a paragraph or so. And I appreciate you guys following along, reading with me today. Looking forward to seeing you in class.